It's spring here and I'm doing a massive amount of seed propagation. And I'm also using pretty much every device you can get for growing seeds, from soil blockers to module trays to seed trays. So I thought now's a good time to talk about seed propagation. The first question is, why bother doing this at all? Why not put the seeds straight in the ground? I don't do this for two reasons. The first one being pests. You could sow 30 seeds in the ground and one slug could easily come along and nail every single one of them in a few seconds. So keeping them in a tray that you can move either inside or up on a bench in a greenhouse or something like that means that they're protected while they're still young. That's the first thing. And the second thing is the amount of warmth that the plants get. Being able to control that makes a really big difference. Seeds like slightly warmer temperatures than the plants that they become are able to tolerate. So in order to have those seeds in the best conditions, it's much easier to just put them inside on a sunny windowsill somewhere than it is leave them outside. They'll still grow outside, it's just they'll take longer to reach maturity. There are really only a few things that I sow directly into the ground. So things like, root vegetables, carrots for one, they don't transplant easy. Potatoes I'll just put straight into the ground, and garlic I also put straight into the ground. But other than that, I put things in the module trays first. In terms of the types of trays and module cells I'm pretty much using all of them here. This seems to be the most common one. You get this in all garden centres. For me, this is just like way too big. I don't know why it's so popular. You could grow thousands of lettuces. You know, the seeds are tiny. That's too big. Unless you've got a huge garden or you're just very organised and you know that you're going to sow every single seed all at the exact same time. I tend to kind of do it bit by bit as I suddenly think, oh, I want a few of this or a few of that. So this is too big for me. I prefer to use this sort of size. These ones you can fit, I think there's about 5 of them all fit in one of these trays, and then you can just pick them up and take them inside. So they're really nice size. You could get a lot of plants in that for sure. And then these are just same sort of deal, but these were free. They come from from some other kind of plant we bought from the garden centre. So those work great as well. The other thing that I'm trying this time, which I've never used before, is a soil blocker. These create kind of little module cells, and I just thought I'd give it a crack. The good thing about it is that it cuts down on plastic. So my normal method is to use these sorts of things. Again, this is another freebie. It comes from the garden centre, but I like these. You can put your plant in there, and they're a little bit rubbery, which just allows you to sort of push the cell out when you want to plant the seedling. So that I like. As for these, I'm not sure. I think if you've got a big garden and you want to cut down on plastic, then they're a really good idea. You can, these are a load of them that I made up just the other day. So you just sort of, you want to fill up a wheelbarrow or something with a load of compost, add loads of water to it. You load up the soil into here, and then as you squeeze that out, that gives you your little cells. And my main worry with them, I thought that they would just fall apart, but they don't. They hold their form well. I mean, I did these a little while ago, and you can see that, that's one of the soil blocks there. It's, it hasn't fallen apart, so that's good. The thing that I like about it is that you're not using plastics, and the other thing is, I have read that it's good for the roots. So instead of them getting a bit pot bound and something like that, apparently it's better in here, and the transplanting is a bit easier. You just pick them up and put them straight into the ground. But I don't know, I think I still prefer these ones, to be honest. The thing that I don't like about doing this is that you need to do quite a lot of them. If you just want to do 6 plants, it's pretty easy to just fill one of these up, plant 6. In terms of doing this, because you've got to mix all the compost with water and get it to the right consistency in order to make the blocks, you want to be doing like a full tray load of them. So I'd say that's good if you've got a big garden. If you don't and you prefer just doing a smaller amount, then something like that I think is a little bit better. In terms of when to use a seed tray and when to use module cells, for me it depends on the size of the seed. So if they're little seeds, I'd much prefer them just to sow them into something like this. I'll wait until they get to about this kind of big, and then I'll pull them out, prick them out, and put them into a cell. So I've done that here. The cool thing about doing that is that these are tomato plants, and I grew them inside. When you're growing stuff inside, because there's less light, the seedlings sort of sprout up really fast, and because they're searching for light. So you can end up with these quite long, leggy seedlings, and if you were to plant them just straight outside, they could easily snap in the wind. So what I do is I then put them into a cell and I bury them quite deep, like all the way down. I get the stem in as far as I can, and that means that you've just got a lot of area for the plant to send out new roots. When the seeds are a bit bigger, I don't bother putting them in the seed tray. So for anything that's sort of this size, I just throw that straight into a module cell. These beans are just, yeah, they need to be planted in the ground. They're absolutely cranking. They're going so fast. But yeah, so things like that where your seed is about this big, I'll just put it straight into a module tray. Same for the sweet corn. Those are quite big seeds, so I just put them straight in, and I don't bother with the trays. Many plants do really well when they're multi-sown. So rather than just putting one seed into a module cell like this, you can put 4, 5, 6, depending on the size of the plant. And that works so well with things like spring onions, beetroot, celery. There are so many things that can be multi-sown. I got this idea off Charles Dowding, he's an English gardener worth checking out on YouTube if you're interested. And what he does is he multi-sows lots of plants, and he says that putting them together means they actually grow better. At a certain point, it will be too crowded for them, and their growth rate will be slow as they're kind of competing with one another. But the way you get around that is just by removing the biggest of the clump to eat when you want to harvest it, and that gives them more space, and the rest of the plants will grow into that space. And that's something that I've been using for a few years, and it works really well. I like to get the seedlings in the ground as soon as I possibly can. So something like this, I would leave it just probably a little bit longer. They're so small at this stage that a snail or something would easily eat the lot. So I'd prefer that to be a little touch bigger. But if you let them get too big, I find they get a little bit of transplant shock. They slow down a little bit. They're not doing anything in here. They get all kind of root bound, and so I think it's best to get them in as small as they can be, but not so small that they're going to get demolished by bugs. As a good example here of me kind of being a bit late here, like these could have been in the ground a week ago. I mean, at this stage, you know, you can see the roots are coming out here. They're probably struggling to grow. There's not enough nutrients in this soil for them, so any longer in here, they're just going to be getting weaker and weaker, so they need to go into the ground. If you do have a situation where you've got something like this, like beans, and then you wanted to plant them out, but let's say you're still in danger of having a frost, you can always just pot them onto something a bit bigger. So I've done that here with this, I think this is a squash plant. The problem is squash and melons look a little bit similar, so it's either a squash or a melon. I think it's squash, but that was getting a bit big to be inside. And it was actually really windy, and I thought I don't want to really plant it out straight away, so I just potted it into this so I can still kind of control where it is. This celery has been doing really well over winter. I sowed it into seed trays because they're tiny little seeds. And then once they got to about this kind of size, I pricked them out, just being careful not to destroy the roots, and put them into module cells. And it's been doing really well. And I think partly because we got so much rain over the winter, and that has kept this thing growing well. As we go into spring and summer, I think it's going to be a dry summer this year, and this might struggle. Well, I'll have to keep on top of the watering, I guess, but yeah, we'll see how we go with this one. These spring onions were multi-sown in clumps of 6 to 8, that kind of number. We've been eating them throughout the winter, and you can see that from this clump here, there's only 2 left. and they're really big. So we pick the biggest ones, and you can see that the smaller ones just grow into that space. Like this clump over here where I haven't taken too many, there's a couple of really big ones, and you can see these tiny little ones here that are just waiting for these to be removed, and then they should fill out and take up the rest of the space. I sowed these broad beans into a module cell, planted them in winter, and they've been cranking all winter. I mean, most plants are not doing that well, sitting sort of dormant, not doing a lot in winter, but these have been growing really fast, and we're in early spring now. The flowers have come out, they're being pollinated by the bees, and we're getting our first beans through. So if you live in a cold climate, this is a really good thing to grow through the winter. I can't think of anything that's going to do better than this in the winter. Maybe garlic, but this is yeah, an incredibly good one for the winter. The problem I have with growing carrots is that they can't really be grown in seed trays. I mean, if you plant them in a seed tray, although they're going to grow, it's the transplanting bit that's difficult, because that taproot is the bit that you want, and so you're best off planting them straight into the ground. And I put a couple of rows in here, and as you can see, for my efforts, I've probably got like 4 carrots in this little clump, and the rest of it has all just been eaten. I'm pretty sure a snail would have just gone along the line and taken the lot, or maybe the birds ate the seeds, but either way, that's not really a good return on my invested time. So I think in future years, being carrots are pretty cheap, I don't think I'm going to grow them. I'm just not getting much out of it. These radishes I multi-sowed, and as you can see, they're absolutely massive. Radishes grow really quickly, and I probably left them in the ground a bit long, so they're going to be really big looking at them. I don't know what really big radishes taste like, but I'm going to find out. Well, that's how I'm doing things here. We've got a really limited space in the bus, so it's quite tricky to fit all the seeds in. And I'm having to do a few of them outside. So I'd be really interested to hear from you guys whether any of you are raising seeds outside and how you're doing it. Thanks so much for watching, and hopefully I will see you next week.